You're listening to Ask Win, the podcast. Folks from all walks of life talk about their daily hustle and bustle, living and celebrating life, sharing tips on becoming champions, especially for those who are muscling mental and physical disabilities. Ask Win, the podcast, with your host who has mustered over 30 years living with cerebral palsy and going strong. Author and cerebral palsy advocate Win Charles. Ask Win, the podcast starts right now.
Welcome to Ask Win, everyone. Today I have Winslow with me, and I'm going to let Winslow take it away. And he is a phenomenal keynote speaker. Yes, his name is Win. You guys figure that one out. I'm not guessing. I'm not making you guys guess. But I'm going to let Winslow take it away, and I'll jump in when he needs me.
All right. Well, it's interesting because my name when I was a kid was Win, and now this is Ask Win, so kind of appropriate that I'm on this program. I'd like to. I'd like to talk a little bit about something I discovered. Because of my career, I've been able to travel throughout China over a 30-year period, which is very interesting. I went to little tiny villages like the Qin village and like the Wudang mountain village, as well as huge cities like Shanghai and Beijing. And what I noticed as I was traveling around through all those years is there were older people, much older than we're used to seeing in the United States, living very active lives. And in doing some research about that for the book I just finished called The Longevity Village Plan, I noticed that there were some reasons why these people are living older and why they're living such active lives. And so that's what I'd like to talk a little bit about. You know, you can actually choose how long you want to live.
Really? I did not know that.
A lot of people think that it's in your genes. You know, you say, well, if my family lived to people in their 80s and 90s, then I can live in my 80s and 90s. And so that's kind of a myth that's been going around for a long time. Yeah. It's not totally true. Only 20 to 30% of your ability to live a long, healthy life is based on genes. The rest of it is based on your lifestyle, what you do every day.
Yeah.
And we can make little changes to our life that make a huge difference. Let me give you a dramatic example. I'd like you to imagine that you're 100 years old right now. And imagine that at age 100, you feel great and you're healthy and you don't have any medical issues. And imagine that at age 100, you're basically still doing the same things you're doing now, maybe even more things. In other words, at age 100, you still have the energy to live a full, happy life. That's exactly how the people in the Longevity Village in China are living right now. It's absolutely incredible. There are 108-year-olds that have never been sick a day in their life. One fellow is 113 years old, and he's still working. He gets up in the morning and he puts on his ethnic clothing and he goes out and greets visitors to the Longevity Village. And if you put money in his little red envelope, he'll tell you his whole philosophy of why he thinks he lives so long and so forth. The point is that these 100-year-olds, there's 5 times more 100-year-olds in the Longevity Village than anywhere in the world. And they're living active lives, they're living healthy lives, and we can learn from that, and we can emulate some of the simple things they're doing that we're not doing that will enable us to live a really long, healthy life.
And I hate to say this to you guys, but the Americans, the latest the laziest people I have ever met. And I am one American, but I am, considering my cerebral palsy, I consider myself very healthy. I mean, I'm walking upstairs every single day, and my office is downstairs, but I take a flight of stairs. There's a flight of stairs from my bedroom to get my garage. So and that hasn't changed since I moved into this house many, many years ago. And so I consider myself very healthy and active despite my cerebral palsy. But geez, you guys you guys like fast food. You guys love Starbucks. I gave up coffee and I gave up wine. And you guys laugh at me all the time because I tend to eat on the healthy side, and so does my stepmom. And it's like, hello, I have a pre-existing medical condition, cerebral palsy. I'm trying to stay away from the hospital, not to put myself in the hospital.
That makes a lot of sense. And you know, you're doing absolutely the right thing. If you look at the people in the longevity village in China, they eat vegetables for breakfast, they eat vegetables for lunch, they eat vegetables for dinner. Vegetables are their main meal. And you know, in the United States, we have a steak dinner, we have a chicken dinner, we have a veal dinner. But over there, those are side dishes. So you will have, you know, cucumbers that are beautifully seasoned, or you'll have mushrooms around there, and that sort of thing, or asparagus. That's the main course. And if you have a little meat, that's kind of a side event. So here we eat way too much meat, and that can be corrected. You know?
No, I agree, and I lost my mother in 2010. I lost my father in May of 2019, and my dad loved meat, loved it, loved it, loved it. And after he died, I made the commitment to myself that I would try and stay away from meat as much as possible. And I have been lucky enough to be exposed to microbiotic cooking, which is more of a vegetable-based style of cooking, and put a plate of broccoli in front of me. Yes, I will eat it. Yes, I love vegetables, and that's good, and that's what I'm sticking to it, because I want to keep my body as healthy as possible.
That makes sense. You know, a lot of people think that Chinese food is unhealthy. And if you go into a Chinese restaurant and you get meat popped on top of greasy noodles or refined rice, people in China wouldn't even recognize those dishes. That is not Chinese food, even though that's what we see all over the country.
No.
Chinese food is probably the healthiest food in the world. And it's because it's based on vegetables. And so what I did, I took out some of the really simple vegetable recipes and I put them in the book, The Longevity Village Plan. And it's amazing how you can take simple mushrooms and make them into a gourmet delight. Or tofu.
Oh, yes,
Most people
you can. Yes, you can. And
these are good for you.
they're excellent for you. So I would think that now, since we're dealing with whatever is going on outside, I would think teach your kids how to cook, please, people.
Good
Use
idea.
that as a lesson. Use that as a lesson in school. Teach your kids how to cook, to stay away from the Starbucks, to stay away from the Dunkin' Donuts, to stay away from all this icky fast food. I mean, the last time I had McDonald's, I'm not going to even go there. I stay away from McDonald's. I was put in an icky situation where I was not the happiest camper when my aide who worked with me said, "Okay, we have to go to McDonald's." I'm like, "Oh boy, oh boy." My system did not like that. I I don't drink coffee. I don't drink wine. So I am more on the healthy side. And believe it or not, I feel great. So teach your kids to cook. Get a microbiota cookbook and get something to get your kids away from the Starbucks and the McDonald's and the frozen yogurt. Yes, I had a piece of chocolate yesterday. Yes, it was dark chocolate. Yes, my weakness is peanut butter cups, but I tend to eat on the healthier side.
That makes a lot of sense. You know, I'll tell you another thing. My mother told me, clean your plate, son. And that was kind of the watchword. You know, she would cook a meal and she put it in front of us. And my brother and I were forced to virtually eat everything on that plate.
Yep.
That is
Yep.
not what they teach in the Longevity Village and other places in China. They have an interesting rule. It's called the 80% rule. And what they do is they will eat until they feel 80% full and they stop. Doesn't matter what's on the plate. And particularly if you talk to older people who are in their 90s, for example, they've been doing that their whole life. And so I've taken people in China out to restaurants, and we'll have this wonderful banquet, you know, with all these little variety of dishes on there. They'll fill their plate, but all of a sudden they'll stop eating. I say, "What's the matter? Don't you like it?" "I'm 80% full." I stop. And believe it
Yeah.
or not, that's a great way to control your weight. It's a great way, you know, if you eat everything on your plate all the time, what happens? You get fat, right? Well, obesity is not good for longevity.
No. And so with that, now I have a question. Because my metabolism is so quick due to my cerebral palsy, due to I burn 1,000 calories sitting up in this chair giving interviews day in, day out, would the 80% rule work for quick metabolism?
You know what? It's not necessary to have a full belly. And that's what I've learned in China. And there are people of all different walks of life, of all different configurations in their body. Some are short, some are tall, some have high metabolism, some don't. But one of the common things they do is they don't stuff themselves. It's not really a good thing to stuff yourself. And so I found this 80% rule. First of all, you feel better. You feel more energetic. You don't feel all slugged down, you know, and sluggish because you've eaten so much. It's something we don't usually do in this country, but it's not a bad idea. We can learn some things from these other cultures.
Oh, yes, we can. And we can learn how they're controlling what's going on in the world right now as we sit here and record this. And China was the culprit, but yet China, once they got it under control, which has only been a couple of days ago, it's now stayed under control. The US, that's a different story because the US has a now high mortality rate from what's going on outside right now and why we're all on lockdown and everything else. So if you want to stay away from the icky germs and stay away from getting sicker than you already are, please eat healthy, you guys. Please.
Exactly. exactly. You know, the statistics are really interesting. I don't know if you realize this, but in the United States, the average age is 78 years old. The average person lives to 78 years old. Now, some obviously live longer, but that's the average. And the average male lives to 76, and the average female lives to 81 in the United States. In Hong Kong, the average man lives to 81 versus 76, and the average female lives to 87 versus 81. So people are living longer there, you know. And so what I've been kind of looking at is, well, how old could we really get? You know, what is the human body really capable of? And this may surprise you, but the human body is capable of living to age 120. And there have been people that have lived to 120. In fact, one person lived to 122. But we're barely making it to 80. So the question is, how do we get those extra 40 years? You know, wouldn't it be nice to have a much longer time to have all this fun that we're having now? And the answer is diet is one of the things. There's some other things too that are even more important, but diet is certainly one of them. We should watch what we eat.
Yep.
But you know
So
what? I'd
go
like to
ahead.
tell you another thing that's very interesting about the lifestyle in these 100-year-olds in the longevity village. They're very active. They are not, none of them are living a sedentary life. You know, they get up in the morning. A lot of them go out into the farms. They do Tai Chi in the morning. They do Qi Gong, which is a breathing exercise. They're constantly moving. And as I go around China, I noticed I get up in the morning. Let me give you an example. I was staying in a hotel in Shanghai. And I decided I wanted to get up early and have breakfast, not in a hotel. I wanted to go outside of the hotel. So I got up at 6:15 in the morning. And at 6:30, I was out on the street, and I walked a couple blocks, and I got to Nanjing Road, which is the most famous road in Shanghai. There's no cars on it. It's blocked off. They have all these shops and things to do there. And I turned the corner at 6:30 in the morning, and I saw hundreds of people out there having a party. I mean, they had brought loudspeakers out, and they were playing music and dancing. Some of them were doing Tai Chi. Some of them were doing Qi Gong. Some of them were just sitting around talking. But the point is, they're very active, and a lot of these people were in their 90s. Some were older than that. And I found that same phenomena going on all over China. But people are very active. They're more active than we are, particularly in the older ages. So what I've learned from that is it probably makes sense for us to get our bodies out of the chair and do something, 15 minutes a day or more. But we can't live a totally sedentary life. It's not a good thing.
No, and that's why I walk up and down my stairs, you guys, and I'm going to be doing more in this next couple of weeks because I don't know with all that's going on outside right now. I don't know when we're going to see the world again and see people again, and I don't know when I'm going back to the gym, but right now I'm doing the best I can, and exercise keeps the mindset healthy. And so when I walk up those stairs, it's keeping my mind healthy and it's keeping everything else healthy. And so, yeah.
Yeah. You know, I got a story about walking upstairs. It's very interesting. There's a town in about an hour out of Shanghai in China. It's called Hangzhou, probably the prettiest city in the whole country. And I have a friend that lives right downtown in a high rise. And this is an older building with really tall ceilings and no elevators. So you have to climb up the stairs whether you like it or not. But because of the tall ceilings, 6 flights of stairs, he lived on the 6th floor, is really like 10 flights of stairs. And there's no air conditioning in the stairwell. So I was visiting with him, and he and his family were walking up these stairs. And I'm actually in pretty good shape, but by the time I got to the 6th floor, which is kind of like the 10th floor, I
Yeah.
walked in his apartment, I plopped down in a chair, and I was actually huffing and puffing. But I looked next to me, and there was a gal that had climbed the same stairs I did, and she wasn't huffing and puffing at all. It made me feel like an idiot. Turns out she was 90 years old, and she lives in that apartment, and she climbs those stairs all the time. And that's one of the reasons she's as healthy as she is, by climbing all those stairs.
Yeah. Well,
So your
I call it
strategy is a good
my
one.
natural stairmaster, you guys. I call it my natural stairmaster, and I'll never get rid of the stairs in my house because they help me move. And people say to me all the time, "Why isn't your house handicapped accessible?" I'm like, because if I did it, I would not be moving up and down the stairs.
You know, stairs are great. I mean, they're free too. I mean, you don't have to buy a machine. You
They
just walk
all
up and down
play
stairs.
too. They all play. So yes, but I have one more question for you, and then you can ask me a couple questions if you choose to do so. My last question is, what is your morning routine?
Well, I'm a Tai Chi instructor, and because I was so enamored with the way people are functioning over there, and that's Tai Chi in the morning and stuff, so I started really getting heavily involved in the Chinese martial arts. And as a matter of fact, I have 4 black belts in Kung Fu, and then I teach Tai Chi and Qigong, which is a breathing exercise. So I get up in the morning, and I don't even have to leave the house, and I can't now because we're all quarantined in here. But I will do, it takes probably 10 square feet is all I need, or less. And I can do these simple movements, these simple Tai Chi movements and breathing movements. And they're great. And I get as much exercise as if I went to a gym. And just breathing alone is a tremendously helpful thing to do. But it's not just breathing the way we normally breathe. And I talk about this in my book, The Longevity Village Plan. I actually give directions on how to do this. But if you take a deep breath, and what I like to do is I count to 4 as I breathe in, and then I hold it. And I usually count to 5 or 6 when I'm holding it. And then I breathe out, and I count to like 8 when I breathe out. If you just do that for a few minutes, 10 minutes, you would be amazed what happens. Your mind gets sharper, your body, if it's cold in the morning, your body gets warmer. That alone is a great exercise, just breathing. Now, what I do is I combine that with Qigong, which if you go on the internet and you type in Qigong, you'll notice that's a very famous Chinese way of breathing. And then what that does is you kind of exercise while you're breathing in, and you do a different exercise while you're breathing out, and it makes it more fun and more interesting. But breathing itself, and I do that every single morning, it's amazing what that does. It makes your mind sharper, and you're better equipped to go through the day.
Now, do you have any questions for me?
I do. So I wanted to ask you about socializing. I know that you're on the radio every day and you do a lot of interviews. Do you do any other face-to-face socializing?
Well, right now we can't, but I pretty much am. I go to the gym once a week. I do see people. I'm not hiding behind my desk all the time. I'm just hiding behind my desk temporarily because we're all in quarantine. But I do see people, and I tend to walk, and I tend walk with the assistant of a walker, and I tend to go. I love going out. So as soon as this quarantine stuff is over, I'll be back to my normal routine, which is going out.
See, I think that's very important. One of the, if you really look at what they're doing over in China, why they're living to be 100 years old, socializing is probably the main thing they're doing, the most important thing they're doing. Muhammad Ali, remember him, the boxer?
Yes.
He was also a poet. And one of the times he said, if you haven't learned the meaning of friendship, you really haven't learned anything. And he really put his finger on one of the keys to maintaining a healthy, long, healthy life. Because when you socialize face to face with somebody, there are endorphins that go in your body, and there's somehow this personal connection of looking in somebody's eyes and talking to them is extremely powerful. It makes you feel less stressful. It makes you feel happier.
Yeah.
And you don't get that on Facebook or even on the radio.
You don't get that on Facebook. No, you don't get that via Zoom. No, you don't get that. And as I was telling people, I don't mind working from home, but I mind the social distancing. I mind the less interaction. That's what's driving me nuts, is the less interactions with people.
Me too. And I'm a writer, so I'm used to staying in my house writing. That's what I do all the time, except when I'm out speaking. And this darn quarantine is driving me nuts because you can't go out and talk to anybody.
It doesn't, staying at home, it doesn't, I don't mind, but not talking to people? Geesh. I mean,
terrible.
Geesh. It's icky. It's icky, but we'll make it through, guys. And so, Winslow, where can the people find you? Where can people get a hold of you if they choose to do so?
If anybody wants to get a hold of me, my website's the perfect way to do it. And my website is winslowbudjohnson.com. Or you can go to amazon.com and find the book, The Longevity Village Plan, and you can do it that way. But I'd love to talk to anybody, and I'd love anybody that wants to learn some of the wisdoms that I've learned. See, in my career, I've been lucky. I've been able to travel around China on an expense account for 30 years. And so I've really learned a lot that most people don't get to learn. And I feel lucky about that. But I'd love to share that with anybody that's interested.
Well, you guys should take Winslow up on his offer, because I had a fascinating conversation, and I hope you guys got to learn a little bit more about China on the happier side, because they weren't dealing with coronavirus and back then, and we're going to kick the bucket on this coronavirus. Let's just say that. The U.S. is going to bounce back. I have a feeling in my bones that the U.S. is going to bounce back. China is going to bounce back. Italy is going to bounce back. The whole world is going to bounce back. And then we'll have a deeper appreciation for friendships. But right now, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay joyful, everyone. And thank you very much for your support. And I will catch you next time. Thanks to you guys.
Thanks, Win.
You just listened to Ask Win, the podcast. To become a guest in the show, visit our website at askwin.weebly.com or call 816-591-3399. Just look for Danielle. Connect with Win on Twitter at WinKellyCharles and like our Facebook page at Butterflies of Wisdom. You can also purchase Win's book through Amazon.com or get a copy of the audiobook through Audible. Ask Win, the podcast.